Ladies and gentlemen, all right, ladies, let me ask you something. How many times have you found yourself hurt by a man, then wondering why he doesn't seem to get it? You're sitting there thinking, why isn't he doing something? Why isn't he noticing what he's done? I've got a little secret for you sometimes. The best way to make him understand what he's lost is by confusing him. And I'm not talking about playing games. No, I'm talking about getting his mind to work in overdrive, getting him to wonder what's going on, and in the process, making him realize how much he's taken you for granted. So, if you're tired of being the one always running after him, trying to fix things when he hurts you, stick with me. I'm about to show you how you can flip the script, how you can throw him off balance in a way that'll make him think twice about his actions. If you're ready to change the game and finally get him to see you for the powerful, confident woman that you are, you'll want to hear all 6 of these strategies. Trust me, by the end of this, you'll be the one holding the cards, not him. When a man hurts you, it's easy to feel like your emotions are completely out of your control. You feel betrayed, upset, and angry, and those emotions start to rise up like a wave, ready to crash. The natural instinct is to let those feelings pour out, maybe even lash out at him for what he's done. But here's the thing. When you let those emotions dictate your reaction, you're giving him control over how you feel. The real power, the one thing that will confuse him and leave him wondering, is in how you respond. Staying calm and composed when he's hurt you will make him think, make him question his own actions, and it will put you in the driver's seat. I know it sounds counterintuitive, right? When someone hurts you, the last thing you want to do is stay calm. You want to react, express your pain, make him feel the weight of what he's done. But here's what's powerful about staying calm. It's not about pretending you're fine or ignoring your feelings. It's about not letting your emotions dictate how you react. When you remain calm, you take back control. You show him that you're not someone whose emotions can be easily manipulated, someone who can be easily provoked. You demonstrate that your peace of mind is far more important than getting a quick reaction from him. Most men, when they hurt you, expect you to lash out in anger or frustration. They might even be used to you crying, pleading, or even withdrawing emotionally. It's a familiar response, and it often ends up letting them off the hook. Why? Because when you react emotionally, you give him a chance to see you vulnerable, and in some cases, he might even try to explain himself away, telling you how you're overreacting or how it wasn't such a big deal. When you don't give him the emotional reaction he expects, it throws him off balance. Instead of finding comfort in your vulnerability, he sees strength in your composure. He starts to wonder, why isn't she reacting the way I thought she would? And that confusion, that moment of uncertainty, is when he's forced to take a step back and think about what he's done. By staying calm, you're not just holding back your emotions. You're signaling to him that you won't let his actions control your emotional state. You're saying, I'm not going to let you dictate how I feel. You don't have the power to break me. And that's powerful. It shows him that you're not desperate for his attention, his apology, or his validation. You've got your own sense of self-worth, and no matter what he does, you won't allow him to destroy it with his mistakes. This is a form of self-respect that he might not fully understand right away, but it'll make him take notice. It'll make him realize that his behavior has consequences. Because you're not going to let him off the hook so easily, in that moment of calmness, you're also giving him the space to reflect on what he's done. Instead of reacting in anger or frustration, You're giving him the time and opportunity to realize how his actions have affected you. When you react emotionally, the focus often shifts to your reaction. You become the one who's upset, and he becomes the one who's trying to calm you down or justify his behavior. But when you remain calm, the spotlight is on him, and he can't hide behind excuses. He can't push his mistake aside and move on quickly. Your composure forces him to face the reality of what he's done. And here's the kicker. Staying calm doesn't mean you're letting him off the hook. It's not about forgiving him right away or acting like nothing happened. It's about setting the stage for a deeper conversation, one where he knows that if he wants to make things right, he'll have to do more than offer a half-hearted apology. He'll have to show that he understands the gravity of his actions and take steps to prove he can do better. It's not about playing games or trying to manipulate him. It's about showing that you won't settle for anything less than respect. And when you stay calm, you set that boundary. Men often look for emotional reactions because they're used to them. When you stop giving him the reaction he expects, it will throw him off and make him question his behavior. That's when he'll start to think, wait a minute, this isn't how things usually go. What did I do wrong? And in that moment of reflection, he's more likely to realize that he hurt you, not just emotionally, but in a way that might have jeopardized your relationship. Your calmness becomes a mirror that reflects his actions back at him, and he can no longer ignore it. In the end, staying calm is one of the most powerful things you can do when you've been hurt. It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending everything is fine. It's about showing him that you have control over your emotional state and that you won't let his behavior define how you feel. You're demonstrating that your peace of mind is far more important than any apology or explanation he can offer. And while he may not understand it immediately, this composure will stick with him. It will leave him thinking about what he's done, and it will force him to acknowledge the impact of his actions. So, next time he hurts you, remember, staying calm is your superpower. When a man hurts you, it's natural to want to retreat into yourself, especially if you've been emotionally wounded. But here's something that will confuse him even more. Don't react with a sense of desperation. This might seem strange because when you're hurt, you might feel desperate for his attention, his love, or his understanding. You might want him to acknowledge your pain and fix what's broken. But let me tell you, reacting out of desperation is one of the quickest ways to lose your value in his eyes. The key to confusing him and regaining control of the situation is to never show that desperation. Desperation has a way of lowering your own value in the eyes of others. When you react with desperation, you put yourself in a position where you're constantly seeking validation from him. You're telling him that your happiness and peace of mind are in his hands, and that is a dangerous position to put yourself in. A man who truly values you won't make you feel like you're nothing without him. He won't leave you hanging, expecting you to constantly chase after his affection or his approval. But when you react in a desperate way, he'll notice that, and it will, in fact, push him away. Why does this happen? Well, desperation can feel suffocating. People, men included, are attracted to confidence, not neediness. When you show that you're desperate for his love or attention, it doesn't make him feel loved or appreciated. Instead, it makes him feel like he's got the upper hand. It shifts the power dynamic in a way that puts you at his mercy. And that's exactly what you don't want. You want to be in a position where you know your worth, regardless of whether he's acting right or not. The goal isn't to make him feel guilty or overwhelmed by your need for him. The goal is to show him that you're complete and whole, even without him. Now, this doesn't mean you have to act cold or indifferent to him. Not at all. It's about showing him that you are emotionally self-sufficient, that you're capable of handling the situation with grace, and that you don't need him to validate your worth. It's about having the strength to walk away if necessary, to create space between the two of you if he's not treating you the way you deserve to be treated. When a man sees that you can walk away, that you won't chase after him when he's not giving you what you need, it shakes him. It forces him to realize that you're not someone he can just take for granted. You're not someone who will constantly beg for attention or affection. Here's another reason why desperation is dangerous. It clouds your judgment. When you're desperate for someone's approval, you start making excuses for their behavior. You might overlook things that should be red flags. You might start thinking, oh, he didn't mean it, or maybe I'm overreacting, all because you're afraid of losing him. Desperation can distort your perspective and make you settle for less than what you truly deserve. By staying composed and refusing to react out of desperation, you're forcing yourself to look at the situation with clarity. You're not allowing your emotions to cloud your judgment. You're stepping back and evaluating whether this relationship or his behavior is really worth your time and energy. When you don't act desperate, you also give him the space to miss you. Sometimes men don't fully realize what they have until they see it's no longer available. When you're constantly reaching out, trying to fix things, or seeking reassurance, you never give him that space to reflect on his actions and miss your presence in his life. But when you take a step back, when you show him that your world doesn't revolve around him and that you can move forward without him, it triggers something in him. It makes him realize what's at stake, and it often sparks the desire to make things right. This is not about playing mind games or pretending that you don't care when you do. It's about respecting yourself enough to not chase after someone who isn't showing you the love and respect you deserve. When you do this, you communicate to him that you will not accept anything less than the best treatment. And you'll also give him the opportunity to come to the realization that he's in danger of losing someone truly valuable. Desperation might feel like a natural instinct when you're hurt, but responding from that place only hurts you in the long run. It robs you of your dignity and your peace. Instead, by resisting that urge and showing him that you can live without him, if necessary, you become more attractive, more confident, and ultimately more valuable. Men are drawn to women who know their worth and aren't afraid to walk away from situations that don't serve them. So, instead of letting desperation control your actions, let your self-respect take the lead. That's how you'll get him to stop and rethink his behavior. That's how you'll regain control over the situation and put yourself in the position of strength. When a man hurts you, the natural reaction is often to feel vulnerable, confused, or even to shut down emotionally. But one of the most powerful ways to confuse him and even make him rethink his actions is to refuse to give him the silent treatment. I know it sounds strange. After all, silence is often seen as a way to punish him or make him feel the sting of his actions. But here's the truth. The silent treatment, though it might feel like a form of self-protection, can actually make things worse in the long run. Instead of using silence to punish him, try using it as a tool to protect yourself and to take back control of the situation. When you go silent, what often happens is that it becomes a form of emotional manipulation, either on your part or his. You might be thinking, if I just don't talk to him, he'll realize what he's done wrong. But here's the catch, he might not even notice. Silence, especially in moments of emotional turmoil, doesn't always lead to reflection. In fact, silence can often be a way for him to avoid the discomfort of having to face his actions. He may interpret your silence as a way to avoid dealing with the situation, which can make him feel like he's off the hook. He doesn't have to acknowledge his wrongdoing if you're not giving him the chance to explain or discuss it. What you don't realize when you shut him out is that it leaves him with no opportunity to correct his mistake. It shuts down any chance for communication. And most importantly, it leaves you with unresolved feelings. The silent treatment might seem like an easy way to cope with the pain in the short term, but in the long run, it only keeps the issue buried under the surface. The hurt doesn't go away just because you're not talking about it. It festers and grows, and it builds walls between you both. Instead of retreating into silence, the key is to communicate your hurt in a calm and constructive way. Don't let his actions dictate your emotional state and your ability to express yourself. By calmly addressing the situation, you're showing him that you're not afraid to face the difficult emotions and that you are capable of navigating through conflict with maturity. When you speak up, you take the power back. You're not letting his actions leave you speechless or helpless. You're choosing to confront the situation head on. When you address the issue directly and calmly, you open up a space for him to reflect on his behavior. He might feel uncomfortable, and that's okay. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. Then the government, in that discomfort, he's more likely to realize the weight of his actions and what they've done to you. The silent treatment may make him think he's getting away with it, but your directness will force him to confront the situation. It shows him that you're not someone who can be easily brushed off or ignored. You demand to be heard, and you demand that your feelings are respected. But why does this confuse him? Because he's used to silence being a weapon. He's used to seeing it as a way to put the responsibility of fixing things on his shoulders without him having to do much of the work. When you don't give him that silence, when you instead confront him with your feelings in a clear and controlled manner, it shifts the dynamic. He can't sit back and wait for you to come crawling back or to soothe the situation with a simple apology. No, now he has to step up and show that he's willing to put in the effort to repair what's been broken. The silence, when used properly, actually removes his ability to avoid the situation. It forces him to address his wrongdoings and either explain himself or face the consequences. Moreover, when you don't give him the silent treatment, you're also protecting your own emotional health. Silencing yourself can often lead to internalizing your pain, suppressing your true feelings, and feeling like you're carrying the weight of the relationship all on your own. By expressing how you feel, you not only free yourself from that emotional burden, but you also invite him into a conversation where the two of you can work through the problem together. Relationships are built on communication, and by choosing to speak, you're giving him the opportunity to step into a place of responsibility. Silence can often feel like emotional abandonment, but communication, even if it's difficult, creates the connection needed to rebuild trust. When you choose to speak up and share your pain instead of shutting down, you don't just show him that you value yourself, you show him that you value the relationship enough to address issues head on. You're not running from the problem or letting it sit unresolved. You're facing it, ready to discuss it, and willing to move forward with honesty and openness. This gives him a chance to see that you're someone who can't be silenced, someone who isn't afraid of confrontation if it means protecting your emotional well-being. In the end, refusing the silent treatment isn't just about confusing him, It's about showing your own strength. When you speak out, when you express your feelings, even when it's difficult, you regain control of your emotional state. You refuse to let his actions control how you feel. And most importantly, you make it clear that you're not willing to settle for anything less than respect, honesty, and understanding. The next time a man hurts you, remember silence might seem like a defense, but it's your voice that will truly change the dynamic. Speak up, and you'll be amazed at how much it can shift the entire situation. When a man hurts you, it's easy to feel vulnerable, rejected, or even defeated, especially when you truly care about him. But here's a powerful approach that will throw him off guard. Don't let your emotions dictate your actions. The reason this confuses him is simple. When he hurts you, he expects a reaction based on your emotions. Anger, sadness, maybe even desperation. But when you keep your composure, when you don't allow his behavior to completely unravel you, you force him to reassess the situation. He'll begin to wonder why you're not responding the way he anticipated. This doesn't mean you don't feel pain or disappointment. It means you refuse to let those emotions define your response or control your behavior. Men, by nature, are often more focused on the physical aspects of the relationship. They can get caught up in actions and behaviors that don't always reflect the emotional depth of a situation. When you act out of pure emotion, he may view your response as a direct reflection of how you feel about him, which can sometimes lead to misunderstandings or even him disregarding your feelings entirely. But when you act in a calm and composed manner, he sees that you're in control of yourself, and this can make him question his own behavior. It shifts the power dynamic in a way that allows you to regain your emotional strength. When you don't allow yourself to spiral into emotions, you're demonstrating emotional maturity. It shows that you're not only capable of handling difficult situations, but that you have a strong sense of self-worth that isn't dependent on how he treats you in the moment. This is incredibly important. When a man hurts you and you respond emotionally, even if it's justified, he may feel a sense of power or control over your feelings. He may even interpret it as a sign of weakness or neediness. But when you maintain your calm, when you refuse to let him see how deeply hurt you are, it forces him to realize that his actions don't have the effect on you that he might have hoped for. It shows him that you are not so easily broken, not so easily pushed around. Now, this isn't to say that you should suppress your emotions or pretend that everything is fine when it's not. Suppressing emotions only leads to resentment and a buildup of frustration. What this means is that you don't let your emotional pain turn into reactive behavior. You don't lash out or beg for attention. Instead, you take a step back, gather your thoughts, and process your emotions internally, away from the heat of the moment. This gives you the clarity you need to communicate your feelings in a healthy way. It allows you to speak from a place of understanding rather than from a place of hurt and frustration. By holding your emotions in check, you show that you don't need him to validate your feelings. You don't need him to apologize right away or fix the situation immediately for you to feel good about yourself. This is where your power lies. It's in your ability to maintain your self-worth regardless of his actions. When you stay calm, you communicate that your emotional state is not tied to his treatment of you. You are already whole. You are already valuable. His behavior may hurt, but it doesn't define you. It doesn't determine your emotional well-being. This approach also leaves him with no clear answer. Men, just like women, thrive on certainty. When a situation is clear-cut, it's easier for them to react or act accordingly. But when you stay calm, when you don't give him the expected emotional response, it forces him to question his own actions. He can no longer rely on your emotional reaction to determine the next step. His power is diminished because he can't read you in the way he expects. It forces him into a position of uncertainty where he has to think more deeply about what he did and why you're not reacting the way he thought you would. What's even more powerful is that by maintaining your composure, you also give him the space to reflect. If you were to lash out, yell, or give him the cold shoulder, you wouldn't give him any room to think about how he hurt you. But when you remain calm and composed, you allow him to experience the consequences of his actions. You're not forcing him into guilt or shame. You're simply showing him that you won't tolerate disrespect and that you expect more. When a man realizes that his actions no longer affect you in the way he expected, it becomes a wake-up call for him to either step up or step away. Either way, it's no longer on your emotional terms, but on his. Staying composed also protects your peace. It keeps you in a place of emotional balance where you don't give away your power in a situation where you're already hurt. When you let emotions take over, you allow him to take away your peace of mind. But when you stay calm, you prevent him from robbing you of your inner calm. You keep your peace intact. And that's something that no one can take from you unless you allow it. In the long run, maintaining composure makes you more attractive to a man. It demonstrates that you are emotionally strong, independent, and resilient. It shows that you're not someone who needs constant reassurance or validation to feel good about yourself. And most importantly, it shows that you're not going to be defined or controlled by his actions. This doesn't mean you don't have boundaries or that you let him treat you however he wants. It simply means that you're not going to let your emotions dictate your behavior or your sense of self-worth. You are in control of your own emotions, and when you stay calm, you demonstrate that control in the most powerful way possible. When a man hurts you, he may think that the situation is straightforward. He hurt you, and now you're upset, and he's either waiting for you to forgive him or for things to go back to normal. But here's where the real power comes in. Confuse him by not focusing solely on the hurt. Don't let the pain of his actions consume you to the point where it becomes your only focus. Instead of allowing the hurt to define the moment, shift your energy toward taking care of yourself. When you refuse to let your entire emotional focus be on the pain he caused, it leaves him wondering why you're not sinking into the sadness or anger that he expected. This shift in energy can not only confuse him, but can also force him to reflect on his actions in a way he wasn't prepared for. This approach does not mean that you're ignoring the hurt or pretending it doesn't matter. In fact, by focusing on self-care rather than staying stuck in the hurt, you show yourself more respect than you might by dwelling on what he did. When you focus only on the pain, you give that pain power over you. It becomes a central part of your emotional existence. And in doing so, you hand over control of the situation to him in a way. But when you choose to take care of yourself, whether it's spending time with loved ones, engaging in hobbies, focusing on your career, or simply giving yourself some quiet time, you take that power back. You become the one in control of how you feel, and by doing so, you indirectly force him to reflect on how his actions have impacted not just your emotional state, but your entire well-being. By prioritizing yourself over the hurt, you give him the message that you will not let anyone, no matter who they are, dictate your happiness. This sends a subtle but powerful signal to him. Men often expect women to be consumed by the emotions that come from their actions. They might assume that if they hurt you, your world will revolve around that pain and that you'll be left trying to fix things. But when you choose to focus on your own healing, Instead of obsessing over his mistake, it sends the message that your happiness is something that depends on you, not on his behavior. You're not saying his actions don't matter, but rather that they won't control your state of mind. This can leave him confused because he's used to being at the center of the emotional response, but now he has to ask himself why you're not reacting the way he anticipated. Moreover, focusing on yourself and showing that you can heal without depending on him for validation or resolution also communicates to him that you have other avenues for support and growth. When he hurts you, it's not the end of your emotional world. You don't need him to apologize right away or make things better instantly for you to move forward. You don't need his validation to feel whole. By demonstrating this, you show him that you're not emotionally tethered to him. It makes him question the importance of his actions. He may have assumed that his behavior could control you emotionally, but when you refuse to give him that power, it throws him off balance. He'll have to reflect on why you're able to move forward without him playing a central role in your emotional journey. It leaves him in a state of confusion because he can no longer manipulate your feelings the way he thought he could. When you focus on self-care instead of focusing on the hurt, you also build emotional resilience. By doing things that nurture your mental and emotional health, you're reinforcing your inner strength. This strength doesn't just make you more resilient, it also makes you more attractive. Not in a physical sense, but in a way that shows you have your own life, your own priorities, and your own emotional space that doesn't revolve around his actions. This makes you less accessible in an unhealthy emotional sense, and it increases your value as someone who has learned how to heal and thrive even when faced with disappointment. Men are drawn to women who are strong, self-sufficient, and emotionally mature. By focusing on your own growth and well-being, you naturally attract respect from him, even if it's not immediately obvious. He might initially feel confused by your response, but over time, he'll realize that you are someone who cannot be easily shaken. Focusing on self-care also gives you the time and space you need to assess the situation more clearly. When you're consumed by pain, it clouds your judgment, and you may act impulsively or react in ways that you might regret later. By shifting your focus to things that bring you joy, peace, and fulfillment, you allow your mind to clear. You get the mental space to evaluate the situation without the influence of raw emotion. This enables you to make decisions that are healthier for you, whether it's choosing to forgive, choosing to speak up about how you feel, or even choosing to walk away if his actions were unforgivable. In essence, focusing on yourself not only helps you heal, but also empowers you to make decisions from a place of clarity and strength. In the long run, this approach challenges him to reflect on the consequences of his actions in a more profound way. It's easy for someone to shrug off a mistake, assuming that the person they hurt will be too focused on their pain to think critically about the relationship. But when you prioritize self-care and don't let the hurt consume you, it forces him to realize that your well-being is not tied to his actions. It challenges him to confront his behavior, not just to make amends, but to learn why it had such an impact. By choosing to focus on yourself, you not only heal faster, but you make him realize that his actions have deeper consequences than he might have thought. Ultimately, choosing to focus on your own healing rather than fixating on the hurt is a powerful way to reclaim control of the situation. It not only helps you heal, but it forces him to reflect on his behavior. You show him that your happiness and emotional well-being aren't something he can easily take away. In doing so, you create a space for him to reflect on the impact of his actions and possibly grow from it. And no matter what happens, You walk away from the situation stronger, more resilient, and more self-assured. When a man hurts you, the typical reaction is to want to confront him, demand an explanation, or let your emotions lead the way. But what if you confused him by doing something unexpected? What if, instead of trying to get him to explain or apologize, you focused on your own growth and gave him the space to come to his own conclusions? This approach may initially seem counterintuitive, but it's one of the most powerful ways to leave a lasting impact on him. By not demanding an immediate resolution or explanation from him, you create a sense of mystery and distance. He might begin to wonder why you're not pursuing him, why you're not as emotionally affected as he thought you would be. This shift can force him to step back and reflect on his behavior, and sometimes it can lead to him coming to the realization that his actions have consequences both in the present and long term. When you refuse to react to the hurt with anger, confusion, or desperation, you essentially show him that you are in control of your emotions, that you don't need him to validate your worth or emotional state. He may expect you to beg for answers, to cry, or to fight for attention, but when you don't give in to these reactions, it confuses him. Why? Because he can no longer predict how you'll respond. It forces him to deal with his own guilt or confusion without the usual emotional push from you. Instead of escalating the situation with reactive behavior, you take a step back, gaining control of your emotions and shifting the power dynamic. This not only keeps you from being emotionally manipulated, but also forces him to reevaluate his actions and their impact on you. You're showing him that your emotional state isn't tied to his behavior, and that's a powerful lesson for him. It's easy to think that confronting him with your hurt or anger is the only way to get through to him. But here's where confusion works to your advantage. When you maintain your composure and stop chasing answers, you start to communicate that you don't need his explanation to move forward. This doesn't mean you don't care about what happened or that you're pretending it doesn't matter. It simply means you've decided that your peace of mind isn't dependent on him or the resolution of the situation. When you act from this space, you teach him that you value yourself enough not to chase after his validation or his apology. You don't need to prove anything to him, and that's what confuses him. He may have assumed that your world would fall apart in response to his actions, but when it doesn't, he's left questioning how much his behavior truly matters to you. The more you prioritize your own peace and healing, the more you become less accessible in an unhealthy emotional sense. And this distance can have a profound effect on him. By not letting the hurt define your response, you create a scenario where he has to confront the consequences of his actions without your emotional input. Men, like anyone, are often quick to act and slow to reflect. They may not immediately recognize the weight of their actions until they see that their behavior didn't have the expected emotional impact on you. When you stop seeking answers from him, you stop feeding into the cycle of emotional dependency. This shift gives him the space to reflect on how his actions affected you, and it also signals to him that your emotional well-being is in your hands, not his. He may start to understand that you are not someone who will settle for half-hearted apologies or empty promises. You need respect, trust, and consistency, and you are not willing to sacrifice your peace for someone who can't provide that. This type of emotional distance forces him to grow up, to take responsibility for his actions, and to learn how to treat you with the care and respect you deserve. When you focus on maintaining your peace and stop chasing after answers, you start to build emotional strength. You are not reacting out of pain or frustration, but you are creating a space where your worth is no longer determined by his actions. Instead of begging for resolution or forcing him to acknowledge the hurt, you allow him the chance to reflect and decide how he wants to proceed. This doesn't mean that you're giving him an excuse for his behavior or letting him off the hook. It means that you are making it clear that your happiness is not for sale, that you will not compromise your peace for anyone, no matter what. This emotional strength shows that you value yourself enough to not chase after someone who isn't showing up in the way you deserve. It gives you the ability to create boundaries that protect your emotional well-being, and it signals that you have the emotional maturity to not be swayed by hurt feelings. Confusing him in this way is a form of self-respect. It's a clear message that you will not let someone's actions control your emotional state. When you refuse to react from a place of hurt, you teach him that your emotional stability is a priority for you, and that you will not let his behavior dictate how you feel. This forces him to take responsibility for his actions, and it might even cause him to reflect on how he treats others in the future. More importantly, it shows you how strong you are. You don't need someone's approval or an immediate resolution to feel validated. You are worthy of love and respect regardless of the situation, and you are more than capable of healing without waiting for someone to make it right. In the end, by not chasing answers or seeking immediate emotional resolution, you not only regain control of your emotional state, but you also force him to confront his actions. You show him that you are capable of moving forward, whether or not he is a part of your future. Your ability to focus on your own growth, healing, and peace is a reflection of your strength and emotional maturity, and it's something that will ultimately lead to healthier relationships, both with yourself and with others.